Hey everyone, welcome back to 90 Degree Turns, where we expand the mind, beliefs, and perspective of the collective and awaken the sleeping many. I'm your host, Trisha Margus, and we are back for round two with our special guest, Bill Foss. Hi, Bill, how are you?
Hey, Trisha. Good to be back here with you again.
Yeah, thanks for joining us again. So,
Hey, you're welcome.
if you
Thank
guys
you for
haven't
having me on.
No problem. Thank you. So, if you guys haven't checked out part one, we kind of went into the fundamentals about the Akashic Records. So, definitely click the link below and check it out. And now we're going to dive even deeper. So, Bill, thanks for coming on. And so, last we spoke, we kind of went through what the Akashic Records are, their impact that they can have on our lives here on Earth, etc. So I would love to dive into the idea of soul groups now and to talk about what is a soul group, what do they mean, and what kind of purpose do they have in our lives?
That's a good question, Trisha. Soul soul energy is it's a little different than we think it is. But let's start with the basics first. We have a body, and we have a physical body, and as we're born, that soul energy comes down, our soul comes down from the Akashic records, and we we step out of the spiritual realms back down into the earth plane. We all have this knowing as the masters that we're working with, and our mission that we're going to come into harmonic in the harmonic resonance that we have with our parents, natural harmonic resonance. So in you've heard this saying when somebody says, well, you planned this, you asked for this. It's more of a harmonic, it's more of a harmonic resonance than anything else. So here we come, it's time to go. And we come down to the earth plane, and we enjoin, the soul enjoins with the childbirth. So the soul becomes enjoined with the physical body that we grow into. So in the body houses the soul houses the body. They're enjoined together. And your soul energy, which is coming through your senses out into the world and reporting, having the sensory experience out here, is connected up into your book of life in the Akashic records. So we know that dynamic. We know that dynamic's happening. Now, as that simple dynamic is happening, your soul, my soul, everyone's, your soul is part of a group of 12. So the number 12 is significant when it comes to the matrix of souls. And then, so there are 12 souls that are in a group. Okay.
Okay.
So we would think simply 12 souls with 12 people in a group. Now, those 12 souls can be anywhere in the world. They may or may not ever run into each other in this lifetime. They may be living in the same area, house, town, or region together, influencing the consciousness in a certain way. All of them in that 12, maybe a few of them are in body and a few of them are out of body. So this is the workings of the universe. That if they're up here and they're part of your soul group that are in form, then the universe is, that's part of that fabric where they're working out things. The healers and the masters are trying to work things out so that more of the work gets done. So if we're like really organizational, we might like to take this soul group and put it here, and this soul group and put it here, and now we can see it as a diagram, and it's like, okay, well, here's this carousel and here's this carousel, and each soul group, there are 12 groups of souls.
And so these
Okay.
are like human souls, or could it be like one soul is on a different star system and another soul's here and another one's kind of scattered all around?
Can be, can be. But there are so many different layers to this. Let's think Earth right now.
Mm-hmm.
Let's think for the Earth.
Okay.
Okay, so we're talking about 7.8 billion souls, right? So let's think Earth plane, local galaxy, local solar system,
Okay.
planet Earth. And so we have a carousel of souls, 12 souls, and then these 12 souls in this carousel are connected in a group of 12. So there are 12 groups of 12. Now you've got 144 souls. There are 12 groups of souls, and these are all connected together through the oversoul. So there's an oversoul. So it is, so you have 12 carousels of 12 souls, and then you have an oversoul governing those. And then you have 12 of
So there's probably
those.
12 over souls and then 12 and 12.
And then you have 12, and then you have oversoul. And then what they call the monad, and then back to God. So
What's a monad?
The monad is an ancient description, which means the same as, it means wheel, or it means in some dialects that word translated as voice of God, vibrational voice of God. But as it comes down, as the energy comes down from the great central sun, from the center of creation, and God sends the energy out. So it's happening in two different ways. It's like the soul energy came out across the universe and houses the body, houses the body, houses the body. And here are all the soul matrices that are gathered, and some of them are in body, some of them are out of body. And then through this soul matrix, you have cosmic universal energy streaming from source down through this. So you have two different dynamics happening there. So that's a real mind blower if you think about it on a soul level. This is the level of soul dynamics of the soul that isn't usually discussed. There's not enough information out there on it.
And it's such a large like quantity and concept to understand too, because it essentially fractals outward from where we are, just fractals infinitely
right,
out.
Right.
Within.
And so if you get into studying the Akashic Records, and then it directs you into a higher level of your own soul energy, and you start studying the dynamics of creation. Basically, we're talking about the dynamics of creation here. And if you start studying on that level, then imagine what you can do with your soul energy. You can just move it out, and it creates, or you direct it over here and it does something, or you bring it in and you make something happen here in your immediate surroundings. So that's a whole different level of using your vital soul essence and your energy, your creative power.
Interesting. So how can we use the Akashic Records then to kind of understand or help us with our own creative endeavors? Is there a potentiality for that?
Yes, huge. When I would have artists, now I'm an artist, as you know, so, but I have a different perspective. But from having artists in the classes, I would have artists in the classes, and I would take them on a journey, and I'd take them up into the records, and more than once, people would come back and they would say, I saw this amazing matrix of energy, and it was living and it was breathing. And different people see it in different ways. Sometimes they'll go into the Akashic Records, the great hall, the great library, and they'll say, oh, there's this whole section full of paintings. like a huge gallery, and all of the great painters were there. And someone else would say, oh my God, I saw this huge, like this hologram of, it's like all geometries together. And it was all spinning and morphing, and it was like things were coming out of it that were living energy. And that's that is the soul of, that's like God's soul as art, as living, breathing essence of pure creative potential that people are tapping into, and they translate it through from the records in that way, because it's literally who they are too. They are that. And so they're having that experience. And that's pretty powerful, because when you go in and you connect on that level, then you can be in there. You could go into the records, you could be doing artwork, and you could go into the records, and you could go into that pure creative artistic potential, that holographic field that's morphing and moving with light and energy. And you could see a painting that you haven't even started yet, that you're going to do.
You could just channel it through.
You could channel it through, and it's showing you all of the different variations and ways that you could do it. You might see it and you might go, there it is, I'm going to do it. And it's like you can see it, but you can't, but you see multiple variations of it. I mean, if you focus in on it, you watch it and you look at it, and you're lucid with it, you're lucid dreaming with it, and you're visually in there. And then it starts talking to you. It starts living and breathing energy. So it's soul essence, creative energy, just like your soul. And so it's living and breathing, and it's moving, and it'll show you what its potentials are for you creating it. And literally what's happening is it's creating itself through you. Mm-hmm. The artwork literally is alive, and it literally creates itself through you as you bring it through. And then you'll have this interactive back and forth with it, where you'll say, okay, what do you want me to do next? Should we do that? And so at that point, what you're working on as an art form completely changes. I mean, once you've had that experience with it in the records, you realize that it's living and it's talking to you. Wow. Even on the 3D. And then it starts saying, and as you're doing things to it, you know that it's telling you to do that.
And when it's modifying and changing as you will it, as it's supposed to be.
Yeah, it's interactive with you. And you can literally stop whenever you want to. So you don't have to. I mean, there are some people, and we know that some people that are their mind operates in different ways. They're gifted. Then there are some artists that become like driven with their artwork, and they might channel and they can't stop. It's talking to me,
They're in the flow state of it.
Yeah. It's like the mad scientist, or the eccentric artist. Okay, so we have that ability, but we can literally say, okay, that's enough. We can stop there, and it will still hold that energy, and then we can either continue that energy on our next piece, or we can start all over with the process and create something completely different again,
Nice.
So
I could definitely see that being useful, not just for artists themselves, but really for any kind of creative force that anyone has, whether it's like playing an instrument or wanting to change something in their life, right? It's you connecting to you on a higher level.
Yes, absolutely.
You kind of see it there and say, okay, let's bring that down to this, let's try it out.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Wow. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. So let's dive into then, how does our own soul interact with like the ego and the mind, and how does that relate to the Akashic Records?
How does the ego and the soul relate with the mind, work with the mind, and how does that relate to the Akashic Records. That's a
Yeah, like
this is going to be a very long answer, Trisha. I'm
it's a
just warning you.
multi-layered. I think we're ready for it. If you'd like to share, I
I'm
think
just
it'd be really interesting.
yeah, the the soul and the ego are sort of like they're foundational to the whole principle. It's a big part of what I talk about in the workshops when we're working with going into the records. Okay. So the main thing that keeps anyone from accessing the records is conflict. So, that's like a block, right? That can be a block of some sort. And that block is, so let's say somebody closes their eyes and they're meditating and I'm going to go in and I'm going to go in and I'm like, I'm almost there. I can feel it. I'm almost there. And darn, I just can't get there, you know? So this is a conflict, you know, and there can be subtle layers of energy here that are blockages. It can be in the ego, in the heart, in the mind, in the energy fields, in the chakras. So a blockage or a conflict, I call it a conflict because it's conflicting energy. It's not flowing. But this conflict is it's driven by the ego, and the ego says, "Wow, okay." The ego is the ego is part of us, right? The ego's, I mean, it's just part of us. You know, it wants to come along for the ride too. You know, it says,
You can't get rid
"Hey,
of it, so might as
right,
well enjoy it.
right, might as well." Exactly. And so the ego is saying, you know, I want to have this experience too. I want to manage. You know, so the ego is talking to the soul and saying, I know you're the God part of us, but I want to manage too. And wouldn't it be good if we could see all the good things? So then the ego starts to think, oh my God, what if I killed somebody in a past life? What if I did something wrong? What if I did something really bad? Then the ego starts to question, that creates a conflict, that creates a separation. So if we can stay out of there, and this is, then the ego may say, dear God, just show me the good stuff. Just show me the good stuff. Okay. Which, you know, I mean, that's what we all want in life, right? We just want the good stuff.
But I mean, there's ups and downs
Right,
naturally.
right, exactly. And as far as manifesting, it's when you start to get into manifesting, which I'm sure we're going to talk about. Manifesting is we're creating, you know, and is it through the ego and is through the subconscious? Is the subconscious creating things we don't want, things we do want? Conflicts again. So things show up and the ego and the subconscious says, well, I didn't want that, but that's what we were vibrating with, you know, at some level. So these conflicts, so let's say through the conscious mind and the ego and the subconscious says, no, just show me the good stuff. I'm worried about, I don't want to see anything dark. So then it really starts to tap into, through the soul, the hugeness of what is possible for us to know. When we literally get that connection going and we know on a higher level what's possible, when we feel that somehow, then somehow the ego goes, wait a second, are you sure you're ready to see on that level? Are you sure you're ready to know that much about yourself? The best thing that we can do is to go in and look with, just say, you know what, I'm going to be the watcher on the hill. That's like a spiritual way of looking at the self through ancient meditation techniques. I'm just going to be the watcher on the hill. And being the watcher on the hill, I'm going to watch the movie and I'm going to practice good term, practice, meaning we don't have to get it perfect. We just practice watching the movie and allowing it to unfold, no matter what it is. And we trust that our guides are never going to give us more than we can handle. Our guides and the keepers of the records and God, because we've asked to know ourselves. We've asked to open. So we're wanting to go in this way. We're wanting to open. And the ego's feeling a little fragile, you know. It's that the ego is that person that, let's say, it's feels like it's standing out in the middle of a field naked during a thunderstorm, you know, or something of that nature. Something it's unguarded, and the ego says, are you sure you're ready to see things that have happened in a past life that could be challenging? So when this happens, it can shut down the pathways between the soul energy coming down from the book of life into the soul field and into the mind, where we process the visuals and all of this. Those are very subtle dynamics that are going on. And this happens when we go into the dream state too. So what we want to do is we want to get to a place when we're going into, like, I like to practice when I'm going to sleep sometimes, because I know I'm going to go into the REM state. So I'm going like right before sleep, and I'm going to get into that place where I can be between worlds. This is the place where we want to like get the ego to like calm itself down and say, okay, sometimes I literally will talk to the ego and say, okay, thank you. Thank you very much for all of your service. Thank you for, pointing out life-threatening situations and things.
Helping us live, thank you.
But, right. But at this time, we're going to put you on standby. We're going to put you on break, and you're not to do anything unless there's a life-threatening situation that we need to know about, and then then you can activate for us. But other than that, you're not going to take us on any online Amazon shopping sprees. You're not going to, all of these things that the ego likes to do. I'll go shopping. That'll make me feel like I'm getting something done, or I wonder what my family is doing, or all of these different ways that it likes to multitask. So we just take the ego and we say, hey, you know what? Why don't you work on the voluntary, involuntary responses in the body and just talk, be part of me, be part of the self, and talk to the higher mind. Talk to the higher mind. And let's talk to the higher mind up into the soul. And let's bring the soul down into the body. So the differences between what's going on within us, and this is paramount to everything that's happening with our connection here as an individual on planet Earth, in human form, in this moment, in all moments in our lifetime. We are a body with a soul and an ego. And in that, we have the chakra system, we have the heart and the mind. And so we have all of those layers. And when we understand, when we at least understand the ego, we're knowing another part of ourselves, right?
Yeah.
We're knowing another part of ourselves. And when we go into the records, we have a perspective through the mind's eye, the third eye, like you and I were talking about, the mind's eye. Now we start looking into the soul energy, the subtle, very subtle layers of the soul and the soul energy around the body and how it comes into the body and how it comes down through the crown, through the face, through the neck, through the chest, and how it radiates into the body and how it expands out from the body simultaneously as God, as part of God. It's really amazing.
It is.
Yeah. So that's
Yeah.
happening.
Especially when
It's
you
like,
explain it in that way, it's kind of like, oh, this is constantly happening all the time.
yeah,
Flow that just, it's always
yeah.
there.
It's like we're walking around glowing
Yeah.
all the time. And we get in touch with that glow. And then we start amplifying that glow and radiating that glow, just like you. You have a radiant presence. You're glowing.
Thank you. It's the
You,
light.
you, okay. Your light is very bright.
It's very bright.
So, uh, is this helping in reference to that original question? We're
Yes.
talking about the soul and the ego. It's the reference of the soul and the ego. The ego being inside of us, the soul being enjoined with us, an energy that's around us that radiates through us and radiates out from us. Now, there's something else that I need to add to that. So the ego it hides in the heart. The ego hides in the heart. We think it's in the mind. We think it's in the mind because the ego is a survival mechanism that's ancient part of us through our development in human form that was based around survival mode.
Oh, it's its
So,
function.
yeah, it was a function. And so it's supposed to be hidden. It's supposed to be hidden within us somewhere. And that part of it, and so the ego is connected to the empathic fields. So let's say if somebody has a trauma in their childhood, let's say they fell in the water. Let's say they fell in the water and they almost drowned. And they're splashing and they're choking. And that person's, their ego does that, you know. Or maybe we do it when we get into a near miss with a car wreck. And we're like, you know, we're thinking about something, or we look or something, or somebody's texting and they shouldn't have been, you know, and all of a sudden we look up and there's we step on the brakes
You
really
just
quick.
realize, like,
It's
real
like,
quick.
and when we do that, like that, fear races through us. Adrenaline races through our chest from the endocrine system, and our ego, it expands like that, and our ego is connected to the empathic field around the body.
Mm-hmm.
Women in general are more in touch with their empathic field than men, although there are a lot of balanced men who are also very empathic. So I'm just saying that women from the get-go are more naturally connected to their empathic field. So when, let's say if the child fell in the water, sometimes there's physical abuse or something, you know, or somebody falls down. Maybe they fell off a cliff or rolled down a hill, or fell off their bike and really got hurt, or whatever it was. And then empathic field went whew, like that. If they really got scared enough, and this happens a lot with childhood trauma, with people, when they really get scared, it forces that field out, and that field has a hard time coming back in and relaxing. For a normal human, it's going to be sort of moving back and forth until it becomes more rhythmic as the soul comes in and starts radiating with its power through the body.
That makes a lot of sense, though, because when people have trauma, they usually tend to react the same way in a pattern,
Yeah.
right? So whenever that something triggers them, whether it's from like a past memory or experience, right away they react the exact same way that they've always have.
Yes.
Whether it's conscious or not, because it's been kind of like scarred into their being. You know,
And
the
so
alert system.
if we can go up into the records, then let's say if there are past life traumas or childhood traumas that are creating blocks for someone, then we can go up into the records and we can look at that, and we can look at it from our God's eye. Look at it from God's eyes. Look at it from the eyes of the soul. Release the ego and say, it's okay, everything's going to be fine, and this is what we practice at this. We practice at it. And when we finally get in there and we say, this is ourself comforting ourselves, knowing ourselves, finally saying, okay, I can release, I can heal, I can understand this, I can see it, I can know it, I can release it, I can accept it all at the same time. All we have to do is see. All we have to do is observe. So there's the magic key between the ego and the soul and the Akashic Records. Is the magic key of just observing.
From a neutral standpoint. So,
yes.
Okay, I understand this happened.
So the powerful, and let me give you a secret here for everybody that's listening. When we observe on this level, we are literally repairing, healing, manifesting, and clearing karma simultaneously. Because the soul in its purest form, when it's allowed to stream through and observe in a childlike, godlike essence, it has pure power of radiance of the divine. And when that comes in, it's unstoppable. And it does multiple different things. It'll start to heal the body. It'll start to heal the self, the emotions, the mind, everything. It'll start to correct karma. It'll start to clear things from past life. And these things, it may happen very quick for a person, or it may happen very gradual for a person, but it will change a person.
I have no doubt of that. That's wonderfully said.
It's really powerful. It's a really powerful dynamic, and I found these inner workings the more that I kept working with the records, and I felt that I wanted to share it. One of my teachers said, "I think you're giving people too much," and that told me that I was on the right track. And as I kept getting different dynamics from my studies with the records, I realized that there's so much to it that someone else could go into this as studying it, practicing it, writing about it, and they could get they'll get the similar dynamics just like I did, but they're going to get other dynamics. They may pick up on things that I haven't even gotten, just like I did from my teachers. For instance, just a side note, Edgar Casey is known for his work with the records. And when I went in and started practicing, I didn't really resonate with his work. I honored it and I studied it enough to know what he was doing. But as I read through it, I just didn't really have a resonance with this work. Now I feel the energy of his work. I can tap into in the records and look at who he is and what he's done. And it's amazing. And it's monumental work. And yet there is so much more that I was meant to do in a completely different way.
It's your own signature of it.
Right. I was, yeah, exactly. I was meant to teach other people a process of how they could get in. And, you know, and talk about these dynamics of the soul in a way that would allow somebody to have an experience of enlightenment.
So you mentioned earlier about manifestation, right? And we kind of briefly kind of covered it with using it for creative endeavors, right? Where if I'm an artist or if I want to create something, you can already see it. Is there anything else you'd want to expand upon when it comes to manifestation and the Akashic Records together?
Yes. So let's talk about the winning lottery numbers.
All right.
Manifesting is, okay, so the soul is in the eternal now. The soul is, when we're on the other side, we're beyond past, present, and future. And your soul literally is on the other side. It's here with the body, but it shares this reality and the other side, the other dimensions.
Many others. Yeah.
Yes. And your mind can connect into the soul, and your soul can connect into the mind. Just like your soul connects with the body, your soul connects with the Akashic Records. Your soul can connect with the mind can connect with the soul. So we can visualize, we can look at. So when we're studying these principles of the intuitive mind, one thing that I found that is a very, very unique principle of doing this intuitive work is that the imagination and the intuition are overlapping. They overlap.
That's what I've found in my life as well. That's just how it works.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great.
It's kind of cool. It's kind of interesting to find the balance between it. But once you figure out what your like balance is of it, things just happen quick.
Exactly. So another illustration of that. So they're overlapping. So where one is ended, the other has already begun. The imagination is overlapping with the intuition. Another important aspect of that is that everything that you've ever wanted or that you ever will want is in your fields, and many things that your soul has placed there from the records, many things that you saw, whether it's something in a catalog or online that you've wanted to manifest, whether it's a life path, whether it's a relationship, whether it's healing, whether it's helping humanity, or whatever it is, living in a different part of the world or resonating with a different part of the world, all of these things are in your field. All of these things are already in your field. And there's a lot. Each one of us has a lot of things in our field out here. And when we ask a message, when we're asking for intuitive or psychic information or input that someone can access here, just straight eye to eye, third eye to third eye, or your fields, and get information on that for you. You can, it's interesting, you're in Chicago. I was in Indianapolis right before the workshop that I came up when we met, and that the great solar eclipse was happening. Remember that?
Nice. Yeah, with the glasses and everyone went to go buy them.
Exactly. Yeah, and everybody went. They were renting hotels and getting in the direct path, and that was a very powerful time for me, because the energy with what I do is when I looked up into that light and I connected with it, it was like God was shining a flashlight on my fields.
Cool.
And it's like God was showing me everything that you think about, that you would like to tap into, that you would like to manifest. It's already there. It's right in your fields. So isn't that amazing?
I think it is. I think more so though is not only that it's all already there, right? Everything it's already happened. It's just a matter of, like, to me, it's about releasing resistance to let it happen, because that is, to me, like the ultimate key of manifestation. It's once you say, okay, this is what I would like, right? Not that I want it, it's already there. I accept it, right? And then you just release resistance, which sounds easy, but it's not as nearly as easy as it sounds. And but once that happens, right, that like 3-step process, then it could just show up, and it does.
Exactly. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, I think it's incredible. Those moments in my life where things have happened. Like, wow, this is better than I had even imagined, or expected or planned, or I didn't even consider certain things. Like, this is this feels right. I think it's the right way
Yeah.
to go. You know,
That's awesome.
yeah,
So
it's
you
fun.
you get it.
It's fun. Yeah, and I definitely recommend our viewers to try it out. Just try and manifest something, and I mean, I'm sure we are all manifestors naturally, but
Yeah.
release that resistance, and it'll come even quicker.
Yeah.
You know.
And if it's for your greater good, it'll happen that much quicker.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's then get into for practical purposes, let's talk about the Akashic Records and how it pertains to what's going on now in the world.
Okay.
So we see there's just a lot of, the veil is kind of lifting, I feel like, in
Yes.
our society, especially now it's 2020,
Yes.
the year of clear vision. Things are coming up to the surface, and gradually our society is understanding the truths of who we are, what's going on in this world, who's running it. A lot of darker stuff is coming to the surface as well as
It
light,
sure is. It
you
sure
know.
is.
So how can we use the Akashic Records then in that aspect to understand what's going on in our world more? How does it relate? Is there a relation between
Yeah.
it?
I think so. I think that's a very good point, Tricia. Um, More than ever before, we are being called on to be in that place of non-judgment. And honestly, how many people at this time in your life or your world or reality do we see that are non-judgmental? It's literally it's pulling a lot of that out of everyone, you know. Si- Situations will react to this, respond to that. You know, everyone, it seems, um, walking in the world through peace, walking in the world through peace. So we need to get back to center. In this heightened energy, you or I or anyone else that can get back to their center in this heightened energy and start manifesting clearly through joy to help themselves and to help other people is going to be doing everyone in their soul matrix, their family tree, their reality, as well as the rest of the world and the group consciousness of humanity a great service. This is the time to really be holding that, you know. So an ongoing, let's say a new spiritual renaissance, but yet an ongoing and amplified spiritual renaissance.
Mm.
It's time for that to really, really, really come home. It's time for us to bring that home within ourselves and within everyone around us. Because, even in this heightened energy where everything's going wrong and everything, let's look at a different level that can be helpful. There are multiple realities. There are multiple timelines. And we're from the original reality of Earth. We were sent here to be part of the original Earth reality. And the Earth is part of the original reality that was intended. So if we go out to, that's why when we go out to nature, and that's why it's so important that everybody says, well, you got to go out to nature. You got to spend time in nature. You got to go back to nature. And now with the matrix stuff and the AI and the cell phones and the computer and 5G and all that, now it's even more important to get back to nature, right? Now we're starting to see the difference between it. It's like, okay, here's
More polarity of what's
right,
what, right?
right.
What you
Here,
value and
yes,
what makes you feel good.
here's the synthetic, here's organic human uh, civilization, but being synthesized with all of this. And now here's the original reality. So at least stay in meditation, you know, whether you're manifesting or praying or just clearing yourself. Just really, this is a great time on the planet to be really just projecting love, just really being in love with everything, everyone, and doing it for the right reasons, releasing, healing, letting go, experiencing those parts of the self that are fragile, letting it come up to the surface, looking at it, being with it, moving through it. And so as we do this, we're influencing the reality.
Mm-hmm.
We're influencing the reality. So any one of us could have a great influence on a great many people. And that's a major influence. And if we're doing that, we're just going to be doing the right stuff. So it seems like everything's going to hell in a handbasket right now. But literally what's happening is everything's coming up to the surface where you see everything is either for the good or it's corrupt. And then we have fake news where the good is being corrupted and the bad is being made to look like it's not corrupt.
Bold.
So
Yeah,
yes, exactly. So we'll let all that play out. That's alternate reality. I mean, it is part of reality coming to the surface and clearing everything. One thing that's happened over the course of time, let's look at reality. So let's look at reality. So this, in the here and now, this is reality. And then we have other realities that are different alternate realities of different versions of things happening. Okay. So let's say in one version of that reality, maybe there's a life-threatening challenges on planet Earth. Maybe this is a different outcome here. Maybe there's different and sometimes there have even been groups around the planet that, and I know this is kind of a side note, but there are groups around the planet that manifest for their own outcome. And they go to certain ley lines at certain times to do certain rituals to make sure that their version of reality happens. What they're doing is they're pulling one of these, and reality moves forward like a stream of energy. So what happens is they start to pull their version of reality into the original reality because nobody else is doing it.
They're just taking advantage of the time that they have.
Yeah. Exactly. And so I'm not doing it to say, call the kettle black and say, oh, these people are evil, which they may be, but I'm doing it to show the dynamic of how space-time reality works. And so we get this maybe there's another, and we could say AI would be an example. And AI starts to come in. Now it's starting to influence the original reality, where all of the souls, through God, came here to have a loving expression, loving, healing, creative expression.
I think it's very pertinent that you mention AI as well, because it is within this reality at the moment, and I think it's important that people realize that it's a tool, right? But if we succumb to it and be completely dependent on it, it becomes us, right? And everything you've talked about with the Akashic Records and the soul and the ego and all of it, it is just showcasing that we have natural abilities, all of us do, right? Yes. That we just need to practice. Literally, it's called the practice because you don't always get it right.
Yes, like exactly.
You can always work on it. Always. Exactly. It never ends. You know? So if we can focus on our practice, on our spiritual selves and our soul-like evolution, the AI will seem probably eventually dull in comparison. But you have to harness your abilities, and focus on them.
Absolutely. Very well put. Very well put. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's such an important time because technology. I mean, look, we're talking right now on devices that are because of technology. Thank goodness that it's there, but also you have to, like you were saying, you have to know when to separate yourself.
Right.
Be in nature and be within and understand who you are. So.
Absolutely.
So, Bill, is there anything that you would like to talk about with our audience that you don't normally talk about, or that you just want to spread awareness to?
I would, you know, I would just like to, uh, I first off, I would like to thank you for bringing things up in the way that you have, because so often I'm asked certain standard questions and I'm expected in some formats to give certain standard answers, and a lot of times it's edited,
Hmm.
which I know there might be editing involved with the show, but
Feels
I mean,
minimal.
you know, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I just want to acknowledge that, and I think a lot of the things that we've talked about so far, mm, um, I felt relaxed enough to just expand and let some of those things flow. And these are important things that we're talking about, because exactly what you were just sharing and what led up to that is all about the organic reality of humankind and human nature. And it's humankind, everybody thinks they're doing the right thing. All of the governments of the world, even if they're doing the wrong thing, they think that they have certain privileges or ideas or thoughts, or, you know,
Well, they could be serving their own agendas, right?
right.
Which in their
Yeah.
eyes is
Yeah.
okay then.
Yeah. Yeah. They, so everybody thinks that they're doing the right thing. That's a given. And some are less than, some are greater than, some are better than, some are not as developed as. Um, it's like one of my teachers used to liken it to a stained glass window. And he would say there is a stained glass, it's like we're all parts of a stained glass window. And all of the parts need to be there for the reality of the stained glass window. Yet some pieces are larger and brighter, and some pieces are smaller, but they all fit together.
Hmm.
And the souls of humanity are that. Every soul is divine, no matter if it's a tyrant or the most loving person in the world. They're all God energy. They're all divine soul energy. So we need to start looking at everyone as divine soul energy. Uh, Dolores Cannon, who did a lot of work with the afterlife and books on hypnotherapy, and she past lives, near-death experiences, alien cultures, things like that. When she went in, and she was connecting with the afterlife, and they were going into the records and looking through people who had past life near-death experiences. When she asked, they they looked at it on the other side, not as dark or evil. They looked at it as misguided or misdirected energy,
Oh,
which I thought was a really good way to look at it.
it's kind of like a neutral, like this was an
Yeah,
experience,
yeah,
and they just
exactly.
didn't
Yeah,
misguide. Yeah, it was misunderstood
yeah,
from the bigger soul aspect.
yeah. So
Interesting.
misguided and misdirected,
Misdirected.
misdirected. And if we look at it that way, then it takes a little bit of the power away from it, or a lot, depending on how you look at it. It takes the darkness out of it. Now maybe there is darkness there, and there is such a thing, and we do need to balance and look out for that. But I think the more that we turn our light on and keep our light shining bright, um, and practice connecting with the records and understanding this, because this is a lost art that is central to our self-knowing and our self-understanding. This is a dynamic that takes us all the way back to Atlantis, when we were all connected through the minds, when we're all part of the same heart and the same mind, like the movie Avatar,
Mm-hmm.
where the tribe was all connected to the great tree.
Yeah.
It was so beautiful. Um, and so it's so important. It's so important for us right now to do that. Every single one of us. And if we can do that, we can change the world. We we hear these sayings all the time, like, okay, well, we recycle one piece of trash, we'll change the world. Piece of recycling at a time. We'll change one person at a time. One thoughtful, loving, kind manifestation at a time. We change the world. So when we're doing the Akashic Records work and you're connecting with your soul and you're going in and you're working out your own stuff and you're looking at your lifetimes, you start healing, you're synthesizing and running energy not only through your own soul, but your whole group, your whole soul group. So you start to, when you wake up and you come online, you start to activate your whole soul group and the other soul groups. So it's like little lights going off on these
The ripple
carousels.
effect of them all.
Yeah. And the more lights that go off, there are two different things. There are two different dynamics that are happening with the human race as far as preservation. Number one, let's say, I'm sure that there are certain levels of world governments that are looking at options to preserve the human race, whether it's on this planet or other planets. They're looking at that. They're looking at that
if they
as
haven't
options.
already built it.
If they haven't already built it. Yeah. Hint, hint.
Yeah.
But here's the other part that's important. The ascension and the development and the evolution and the ascension of humanity through the human soul. That's why God created us. That's why God created the soul. That's why God allowed the human body, even though the aliens were involved in helping to create humans. We were created with an advanced chakra system, advanced chakra fields, advanced nerve directories through the body. We have endocrine system and organs that will perform natural, great spiritual, energetic feats that we don't even know what our own organs and the endocrine system and the chakras are capable of.
Well, it's beautifully designed. That's for
Sure.
It is an impeccable
Yes.
design.
Yes.
That works quite well when treated with respect.
Absolutely. And so the yogis in India and certain places around the world have shown this. They're like, can manifest. Thought to hand, out of the ethers, we can manifest. They can bilocate. They can stop the aging process. They can, heal someone else with their hands or their heart or their eyes or their mind. Or they can stop time. Or they can change the weather. Or all of these amazing things, And this is like a blueprint of what we are all capable of as a race. Why should we be fighting over whether we have electricity on the grid or free electricity, or whether we have, who controls the currencies or the monetary, the banks of the world? Why should we be, why should half the world be have food and there be places in the world that are hungry and starving or diseased? It just doesn't make any sense to be operating on that level. So if we just start to get back to our soul and through this and start to think on this level of activating the soul and becoming enlightened by practicing going into the records, we're going to be in a place to get one step closer to our own ascension. And
And as a whole, that'll affect everyone else, right? So we
absolutely.
can gradually,
Yes.
everyone can make it. We can all,
Yeah,
it's not really, I don't think we should be worried about if you're going to make it or not. There's much more important things to worry about as like
I agree.
on your personal soul level, like how are you dealing with difficult situations that come up? How do you respond? Do you react? How do you think about the world we're in? I think are you like within your heart space? Like that to
Yeah.
me is like fundamental.
And those
Not
things,
to worry about it either though, but to
right,
acknowledge that that is what's important and what
right.
will bring about like a collective rise in consciousness is to be in your heart and to really focus on it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The title doesn't really matter. It's about working on it, doing the work, as we all say, right?
Right, right. And
Yeah.
if you're, let's say, if we're doing the work and we're doing all this energy work and the consciousness work and we're waking ourselves up and we're learning, knowing, understanding, practicing, meditating, releasing, healing within ourselves, and then we get angry, we're going to be okay.
Yeah.
It's not like we're going to become lost to it. So let's say if we're in the mundane and we're working and we're not, and we're keeping ourselves kind of disconnected from our spirit and God, and then we get out of sorts and angry, or we feel disconnected, then we start to feel lost, and then we start to run that, or some people do, and it's just the way the dynamic turns sometimes, that people start to run it like that.
It's their
and
program then.
and then it's conflict and it's chaos. It's chaotic and it's conflicting energy, and it can create stress and turmoil and sometimes sickness and anger and sadness and all of that stuff. And then that goes out as emotional um, debris that discharges that affect the weather patterns. When that happens in large areas on the surface, it affects the weather patterns.
Interesting. I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
yeah. As well as, because we're powerful and we don't even know the ways that we affect um, the world around us sometimes. So the reason why I brought that up is if we're doing the work and we get angry or we get upset about something, whether it's at another person or the government, we'll be okay. We're not gonna. We'll be able to go. Even Christ got angry. I mean, he reached a high level, and then he spun out and he went running through the synagogue, chasing him with a whip and a chair, or whatever. Get out of my Father's house. But then he went right back to doing what he was doing, and everything was okay.
Yeah.
And you'll find when you reach a certain level in your studies and you get angry, you'll feel it, you'll be okay with it, because it's healthy to let it out and not to hang on to it. We know that much. Easier said than
Rather
done.
than keep it. Yeah, absolutely. Well, Bill, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for the work that you do, Bill. This has been a really enlightening conversation.
Thank you. You've been great, Tricia. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no
Please
problem.
keep doing what you're doing.
I will definitely. There's no doubt in my mind. So thank you for sharing the light and the wisdom that you have about the Akashic Records. And everyone, like Bill's stuff, check out his social media. And if you like the work that I do, definitely like and subscribe and share this content. And thank you all for joining us tonight. And we will see you on the next round of 90-degree turns. So thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful evening. Bye.
Bye-bye.